welcome back to this week's episode of DEI After 5. We are continuing our conversation with Ofentse from last week. I hope you enjoy. Again, intentionality.
100%. That's the
and
word.
It's like, how do you truly be intentional in what you're doing? And not just checking the box, right? Not just the performative. I had a guest on, I believe it was either season 1 or season 2 of the podcast, where she talked about she's in a wheelchair and she said, going to the restroom, going into the stall, the handicapped stall, and it was being used for storage. And so it was like they checked the box to say, yes, we have a wheelchair accessible stall. Yeah. However, it's not accessible, it's not usable. And so doing more than just checking boxes, doing more than the performative, superficial stuff. And I truly believe like this next iteration of this work is going to be the deepening of what this looks like in our culture. What does inclusive workplaces, what do they really look like and feel like? And it's not going to be these check the box type of activities. And so that intentionality, to your point, I think some organizations have taken it for granted.
100%. I agree.
Because it's just like, oh, well, this is just who we are. Great, wonderful. Like you said, how do you build upon that versus looking at all the things that you're doing wrong? Those things can be fixed, but let's also celebrate the things that you are doing, and not making it feel as if it's a heavy lift.
Yeah, and I mean that accessible stall one it's such a simple thing to fix, right? Like,
yes,
if you spoke to the people in your organization, that's a conversation that could come up at the coffee stand that, hey, there's a bunch of boxes in the accessible stall. Can somebody please remove those? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's
easy fix.
Yeah. And it's about how do we bring these conversations out into the open? And in fact, it's not even supposed to be the responsibility of the person who is on a wheelchair to have to go and notice that and say it. There's people who walk into that stall all the time because they have to clean it. If they were conscientized to the idea that, hang on, there are employees who might want to use this, even without this idea that it must be a person with a wheelchair. So case in point, I use accessible stalls partly because they tend to have dimmer lighting inside them sometimes. And so photosensitivity is a thing for me, but also because there's something about them where, because they're wide enough and I'm claustrophobic, it helps. Like, it just makes me feel less stressed when I'm in a wider space, because generally the other stalls are this size, right? So it doesn't even have to take her being stuck at the door to then for people to realize this is a problem. By the time we get there, we've just created a problem for somebody and just added them. And that's the hope, that if we ingrain these conversations into our day-to-day, if we're intentional about actually learning about each other, there's no reason why these conversations, I'm not understanding why these conversations are not happening. And I'm
well, and I can tell you why. Part of it is this move to creating a culture of care where people feel that they can speak up when they see these types of things happening, right? It doesn't have to be the person that is impacted the most. The ally, and that's a whole other conversation that my guest, I mean, people have, what I feel about the word ally, but this is where allies show up, right? This is where I can speak on behalf of somebody else. If I'm seeing this and I'm like, wait a minute, how are we going to have a stall that's not even accessible? Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
But also, let's put ourselves in those shoes. If I walk into a stall and it happens to be not an accessible one, fine, i.e. it's that tiny one, and I find a box in front of the door, like,
right.
Why is it different for it?
Exactly. And so that's why as we're talking about this, I'm like, what that tells me is if people don't feel that they can speak up, then we're talking about a lack of psychological safety.
100%.
which is, you don't want to say something because you don't want to be the one to speak up and get yelled at. Well, why would you get yelled at for speaking up about something like this? So there's already a culture that is a hostile environment.
Yeah.
Right. And so that tells me a lot already about the type of organization that it is. It should not have to be the person that's most impacted. Like you said, if it's, excuse me, someone that's cleaning the stalls, do they feel they have the agency to speak up? And oftentimes they probably don't.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
And so, but again, that tells me about the culture of that organization. And so when we're thinking about, and that's just one example, but there's so many other things that can be said and done. And I've shared this story several times where, even working on a team, we were working on a website. You would appreciate this technology. We're working on a website about all of our inclusion efforts.
Okay.
And I asked the question, can somebody with a screen reader use it? Access this website? And they're like, well, why? I'm like, it's a website about inclusion.
The least we can do.
And so for me, that told me, I'm like, you know what? This is a superficial check the box activity. This is not truly about being inclusive. Like, this is a pat yourself on our backs activity versus we truly are thinking about what inclusion looks like, feels like, the day-to-day experiences.
Yeah, but also we're willing to do the work. So this is the perfect example for me, right? Because I'm exactly in that position right now. So at the point at which Wakari launched, and this is a confessional, and it's also going to make me look bad, but let's put it out there, right? We built this website, and one of my original principles is it has to be accessible and it has to be inclusive, because what are we trying to do? We're trying to walk the talk, right?
Yep.
And so we're not trying to not actually say the thing that we're expecting other people to say, because all we are doing, as Wakaris were saying, we want you to be accessible across everything. And yet this ask is that we be accessible on just our website, right? Because we work remotely, and the development team that we hire, great team, great camaraderie between them and myself. I've seen their body of work. They've done amazing work. I know the type of tech they can build, but they don't have accessibility as an extra layer of expertise. So in tech, you must actually have a layer of expertise about accessibility in order to build an accessible website. And now there's standards that you can check yourself against. So the web accessibility guidelines, WCAG2, and these are continuously moving. And so when they built the website, we were in this conundrum of, do we find an extra person to then bring in this accessibility expertise, or do you build and then we're going to add this as an add-on? And this is a real tension that we had. And it was a case of finding a third developer is going to mean more money. Finding this person and onboarding them and getting them to work together with you guys is going to have to be that whole teaming, norming, storming, forming thing. It's going to take a long time. We're impatient. We're trying to get this platform out. Entrepreneurs all excited about, get the platform MVP 1. And we sat in that for a very long time. And all of a sudden, the tension of even the thing I'm trying to preach is slapping me in the face. And I'm saying to them, can we push this out? Can we push this out? And to tell you the truth, we got over that hurdle fine, because what ended up happening is the gents that are developing it are saying, give us time to build it. Don't launch. Once you've finished building it, before launch, we're going to go through the whole thing. I'm going to learn accessibility guidelines and how to do them, because he as a developer is interested, and then he's going to effectively embed them in. And he's now done that. So now we've got a fully accessible website. Thank goodness. We actually need to get that audit checker on it, but we got it when we know we've built it and we've tested it out. But you all of a sudden start to realize, this is not as simple as even I would like to think it is. Right? Because very quickly you're getting into a cost versus time versus value versus you looking like a hypocrite, Ofentse, because why would you set this as a standard for other people and yet you yourself are not upholding it? And I think that's the part where you then have to get to reckoning with the truth. The truth is, creating a culture of care does take time.
Yeah,
And it
absolutely.
does cost something. So this idea, we don't even want to sell this idea that it's going to be free. It's not going to be free. It's going to cost something. And usually that something is either going to be time or it's
Yep.
going to be money. You have to be prepared to do it. And at this point, we're now starting to have to weed out who the people that really truly care are and the people that actually just care as a function of a tick box are. Because the moment you have to put time and money on the table, it becomes a very different conversation.
Yes. The other thing that you just said that, I mean, just touches right on creating this culture of care. And it does take time, but it's also making your values actionable.
That.
Right? It's not just saying these are our values. It's what does it look like in action? And it does take time. It may take some additional talent, right?
Yeah.
Additional funding, whatever it is. But if these are truly your values, you're going to do what it takes in order to get there. And part of that could be being very creative in getting there.
Yep.
And so thinking outside the box, thinking more broadly. And so those are the things that do take time. I mean,
and we're never going to sell you on just do it. Nobody's going to beat you into doing it. So I'm literally in the world now where I'm like, carrot and stick. We're not we shouldn't be beating anybody to do these things. These are the right things to do. These things are actually good for business. There's enough research that's proven that being compliant, being accessible, being inclusive, being equitable is actually hitting your bottom line. And so let's just do it. Let's actually just walk that talk. And if you're not walking the talk, we'll just put you in a, we'll move. We will swiftly move.
But again, it has to be built into the system. It has to be built into the organization. It has to be part of the DNA. It can't be an add-on. And I think, when we were having these DEI conversations before, it was this add-on.
Yeah, like the appendage on the side. And it's like,
that can easily be cut off.
Yeah. And it gets cut off when the pressure gets too much, or the priorities obviously mount and start becoming a list of 100 instead of a list of 10. And it's like, this is as bread and butter as let's switch the light on in the building. If we're not thinking about it in that way, it's going to be really difficult to actually get it right.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, yes. And it's again, is this truly who you are as an organization?
Yeah.
Or is it lip service? Because the other thing, and I say this to organizations, I say this to leaders, even when I'm working with teams, we are now at a point where employees, we just couldn't stop. So continue next week with part 3 of this conversation. We'll start to wrap it up. I hope you enjoy.